very successful startups that have both been acquired for modest sums at the very least. He was the founder of a company called ONEList, which merged with eGroups, and then was acquired by Yahoo for about $400 million and something like that in 2000, which became Yahoo Groups. And I was a big fan and user of the eGroups since it was hatched, at least out of a condo nearby where I was at. I guess you were the ONEList side of the house, but the eGroups folks lived up near Diamond Heights in San Francisco.
Yeah, Scott was on.
Exactly, Scott was on. He used to play Ultimate with. In 2003 or 4, something like three, you started Bloglines, which was probably the first notable blog reader of scale, I would guess, or at least one of them. And that was acquired by Jeeves, which is now part of IAC, I guess, in some form. Again, for an undisclosed but large sum, hopefully. So Mark's beat the odds twice. You've been able to create technology companies, and I guess one thing I should point out is that you're a geek who's been a CEO of companies, which I think is maybe not always the case, at least those who have been successful. So I guess we have a presentation on Try This for Lean. Mark's going to talk a little bit about his third startup, which he is about to launch and was potentially going to launch earlier tonight. And we'll talk a little bit about the trials and tribulations of running a startup as we get into that. So Mark, do you want to give us a little bit of an intro? I think I've done some of it.
Yeah, absolutely. Hey everybody. It's been an interesting day for me, actually, a little bit. First off, thanks for having me. Thanks for all you coming out, everybody. This was actually, and I do mean thank you, because this was a hard deadline for me. Because the idea was I was going to launch my next startup here. And as of about 2 hours ago, that was still the case. Not anymore.
Tomorrow.
Yeah, maybe next week. So a friend of mine I invited to register with the service. I'll talk more about it. It's called Snap Groups. Registered with an email address, which is perfectly valid. It had a plus in it. Wow, things are going great today. Excuse me.
Didn't kill the wine glass. You're good shape.
Yeah. So this is very nerdy, but I'll just put this here. He registered with an email address with a plus in it and completely destroyed the database for reasons I have no idea.
Nice redundancy there.
Yeah, not so much. I really hope to launch that today, but hopefully next week. Fail happens. I mean, I have a slide in here that's actually quite appropriate about that, where you'll have a catastrophe every 3 months. So I guess I'm just starting early on this one. Yeah. Thank you. I love technology. So Dave talked a little bit about my startups. I'll briefly go over them again. I've done now 3 startups in the last 12 years. And really what I want to talk about with this presentation is how things have changed over the last 12 years in regards to running a lean startup. Really doing the lean startup thing is something I kind of backed into at the beginning with ONEList, although I veered away from the chosen path of lean startups. But just to give you a little more background, I started ONEList in August of '97. We launched it in January of '98. Had no idea what the hell I was doing. I was working as an engineer at Sun at the time, and didn't know how to raise money, didn't know how to do anything, but this was something that I wanted to do.
Fortunately, that time you didn't really have to know anything to raise money.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I did, so clearly, yes. But for the first year, I moonlit and worked nights and weekends on ONEList because I didn't know any different. So it was myself, and I recruited 4 friends, and we just used our own money. I think we spent a total of $55,000 for the first year, and this is in '98, and that got us to 1 million users. And then we went big after that. We were acquired by Yahoo in June of 2000. Bloglines, I launched that in 2003 and was acquired by Ask in '05. Bloglines I've self-funded completely. And I'll talk more about that. So I was going back towards the path of the lean startup, but I made a mistake or two along the way there too. And Snap Groups, which is the wonderful company I was going to launch tonight, which was going to be amazing and was going to have rainbows and unicorns and everything like that. If the database only worked, that would have launched tonight, and I'll talk a little more about that as we go on.
As I like to say, anything we're doing is worth fucking up the first time, so congratulations.
Thank you. So a few years ago, in a fit of Red Bull fury, I came up with a bunch of startup commandments, just talking about various aspects of different startups. So I've got a few of those in the presentation, and this is the first one. Really, as a startup, it begins with an idea, but that's just the start. If you think you're unique and you think you've got this special idea, get over yourself. You don't. Lots of people have come up with the same idea. What matters is the execution. And the other, I want to start with a second commandment before we continue. And it's an all-encompassing thing. I mean, I'm not sure how to have a life when you run a startup. So what that means is that you have to be working on something that you're passionate about. If you're not solving a problem that you yourself have, I don't see how you're going to actually be successful. I think if you don't, you need to have passion about these things because they will consume your life. Every waking hour and most of your sleeping hours as well. And so, continuing with the idea, again, when I said focus on what bugs you. So, going over my 3 startups, I can tell you the reasoning behind each one of them. With ONEList, I went to university in the late 80s, early 90s, and was exposed to mailing lists back then, and was enthralled by them. Utterly thought they were the best things ever. That was where the best conversation was happening on the internet at the time. But they were very nerdy, very hard to find, very hard to run. So with ONEList, I knew that I wanted to start a mailing list, but I knew that there were all these problems with starting and running mailing lists. That was my passion. I wanted to be a part of this communication, and I knew that there was this huge problem to solve with that. With Bloglines, very simple. That was blogging was becoming really rising at that point in importance. And so I had a bookmark list of about 100 sites that I would go to every day. These were sites like CNN, Slashdot. My friends had blogs. And I just want to go to every site and see what's changed over the course of the day. But that's taking a long time to go through every site every day. So I knew I had this problem. I wanted to solve it. And so I found a technology called RSS. And there were some desktop-based aggregators. Bloglines is an online news aggregator like Google Reader is now. And so I knew that there were these desktop aggregators, but they didn't work for me because I'm on several different computers every day, and I needed something online. And so that was really the germ of the idea for Bloglines. Again, solving a problem that I had and that I had passion for because I was really interested in this. And then finally with Snap Groups, as you'll see next week, perhaps, I'm going back to groups again because I knew through ONEList and through mailing lists, groups are incredibly powerful. They're I think the best thing about the internet is group communication. But I also think that over the last 10, 12 years that groups have stagnated. Certainly Yahoo hasn't really done anything with Yahoo groups during that time. It's not your fault.
Wizard.
For those who don't know, Leonard Spizer's company was acquired by Yahoo. He inherited Yahoo Groups. He did absolutely nothing for 2 years.
The same
all Leonard's fault.
The same code he wrote is still there. Right?
If that's really true, be afraid.
Use a plus when you subscribe.
I needed that.
We're all friends here. It's all right.
It's fantastic. I haven't gotten out of the house, and well, you can tell. Where were we?
Please, you were working on that third startup,
which cratered this evening, and will launch next week. But so the idea behind Snap Groups is that I mean, there's still things that we wanted to do with ONEList that we just haven't that still haven't been done with Yahoo. So it's not going to be based around mailing lists. It's going to be more real time.
Wait, you said real time?
I did, and streaming. Do I win Buzzword Bingo?
Exactly. VCs in the audience are restraining themselves from writing checks as we speak.
So that those are the three ideas I've had.
You've only had 2 ideas. It's the same idea twice.
You're right. But it's a good idea.
I absolutely agree.
I've had 3 ding-dongs today, so that's what I've had to eat. Getting back to the startup commandments.
Clarify for the users at home, that's a snack food.
Snack food. Yeah, that's
Just keep it clear.
it. Appreciate that. You're good.
Speaking of...
Yeah, really. That was kind of a... Yeah. Well, we're talking lean startups here.
Are you talking capital, number of people, other
yes.
issues? All the above, okay.
So my first startup ended up with 150 people and $46 million. Snap Groups is me and $6,000. So, but you know, I'll talk more about that. You know, getting to the business model, it's interesting how I found that really your business model depends upon the environment that you're operating in and the time that you're operating in. Certainly the business model that we had for ONEList is completely, I think, inappropriate for the business model that I'll have for Snap Groups. With ONEList, hell, it was the first bubble, so the idea was get big fast, do advertising and IPO, and then we win. With Bloglines in 2003, you know, after the crash, nobody was going to IPO, and really the company was built with the idea that it would not IPO. So that, again, it was run cheap this time, get users, do advertising, of course, and then get acquired, because that, again, when you're operating in the 2003-2005 timeframe, that was more appropriate business model. Whereas now with Snap Groups, the idea again is to run cheap, get your users, but really go after a freemium business model. So there will be always be a free aspect to the service, but then there will be services on top of that which you can pay for. And with Snap Groups, I'm not considering or thinking about an exit at all. Whether either acquisition or IPO, I'm looking just to build a good business. So another one of the startup commandments, I think this is, I don't know, fairly self-evident. So I've mentioned a little bit about this. So funding, though, I did actually start ONEList cheaply and leanly because I didn't know any better. I didn't know any VCs. I had no idea what a term sheet was. So with ONEList, I started it with like $5,000 of my own money, and then I brought in a friend who had $50,000, and that got us to 1 million users in '98. We had no idea what the hell we were doing, But then we weren't looking to really run cheaply at that point. We just didn't know any different. We didn't know any VCs. But we finally were able to raise money, and over a couple of rounds, we raised about $46 million, which we got a huge burn rate. We had 150 employees.
So wait a second, what did that look like in terms of the rounds and amount of money that you raised to get to 46?
So the first round for ONEList was $4 million, and our investors were CMGI and Bertelsmann. We raised that December 1st of '98, the same day we passed 1 million users. So that was myself and 4 people that I'd recruited with me. We were working nights and weekends. We all worked at various companies at the time. And we were almost out of money. So we took the $4 million, then we all quit our jobs. I deposited the money in the bank, and we just had a normal checking account. So I went to the ATM and I printed out 4 receipts, or 5 receipts each with a little $4 million account balance on it, and gave it out to everybody. So that's how we celebrated that. And then once we took the money, then it was like hell bent. We could not hire fast enough. We could not grow big enough. We then merged with our nearest competitor, eGroups, brought in a new CEO. I mean, this is not a terribly unique story. We raised $42 million in our next round and started preparing for our IPO. We filed our S1. Sure.
How many of you guys feel like you really missed out on that? Damn, I didn't go to enough parties, didn't get enough sweater, fleece, woolen pullovers. Some of you, not enough recreational drug use, but whatever. Really, $42 million.
Yeah.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
Wow. All right, and it worked. It worked, right?
How did the private merger go?
With eGroups?
Yeah.
Poorly.
Is it something you had to do, or was it so obvious?
So ONEList, my company, was about 40 to 45 employees. eGroups was about 100 employees. We were the acquirer technically, but they had more employees. We had a CEO that we had brought in over me, and that was basically our only executive at that time. They had a full executive suite except the CEO. They were based in San Francisco. We were based in Redwood City. There were lots of integration issues. There was fighting over what technology we would use. It was a bit of a drain.
What
distraction.
necessitated the marriage? Was that something you and the other eGroups founders put together? The VC's shotgun marriage? You guys both decided, hey.
We did not. Yeah, we did not both decide that. I don't think. I at that point, I don't know what kind of backdoor machinations there may have been. But eGroups had lost their CEO, had been pushed out, and we had just hired a CEO, and so. I don't know.
Well, of course, that's a great reason to merge 100.